Asaguera announced today it will reduce the age from 50 to 45 by the end of next year. The age will be reduced to 40 over time. Asaguera says Cancer Care has been working with healthcare system partners to hire more mammography technologists and increase screening appointments. People in the rural municipality of Hanover are still dealing with the aftermath of last week's flooding. A heavy downpour swamped southeast Manitoba. It flooded basements and washed out streets. Hanover Reeve Jim Funk says rainwater has almost fully receded in the community, but the flooding has left many people with tens of thousands of dollars in repairs.
It's a horrible feeling, and it's very costly because insurance is very limited in most cases. It's not something that we can catch up with in a short little period of time.
Funk says the province should help those scrambling to pay for their much-needed repairs. The province says it's working with several communities. Workers of Vancouver area grain terminals are on the picket line this morning. The union representing more than 600 workers says it has not been able to reach a deal with the employers. 6 bulk grain terminals in Burrard Inlet belong to 5 companies. The strike completely shuts down the terminals and exports in Canada's biggest grain exporting port. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has made the case for bringing down the Liberal minority government. The House is debating his party's non-confidence motion before voting on it tomorrow. Karina Roman has more from Ottawa.
Pierre Poilievre began with his often told story of his own humble beginnings and those of his immigrant wife, arguing that the biggest promise Justin Trudeau's government has broken is what Poilievre describes as the promise of Canada to anyone willing to work hard.
The promise was that anyone from anywhere could do anything.
Poilievre repeated his argument that Canada needs a carbon tax election, blaming the price on carbon for the affordability crisis and warning of a nuclear winter. Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson says that language is ridiculous.
And not becoming of a leader in a major G7 country, they are stupid, and he should know better.
With the Bloc and the NDP already saying they won't support him, Poilievre knows that his motion will not pass a vote tomorrow. But it's an opportunity to further differentiate the Conservatives from all the rest. Karina Roman, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now to international news. Lebanon's health ministry says more than 550 people are dead in 2 days of Israeli airstrikes. Emergency workers dig through the rubble of a destroyed building in southern Beirut. Israel says the attack killed a high-ranking Hezbollah commander. Israel says it's targeting buildings where the militant group stores its missiles and is urging civilians to evacuate areas with Hezbollah ties. UN human rights spokesperson Ravina Shamdasani condemns the tactic.
The obligation to protect civilians is paramount. So whether you've sent out a warning telling civilians to flee doesn't make it okay to then strike those areas knowing full well that the impact on civilians will be huge.
Tens of thousands of Lebanese have fled the country's south. The crisis in the Middle East is front and center at the UN General Assembly. World leaders are there, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and President Joe Biden. As Caroline Bargout reports, the president spoke today about perseverance.
I entered public life not out of despair, but out of optimism.
This is President Joe Biden's 4th and final time addressing the UN General Assembly. He started off by talking about his history in American politics and comparing it to today. When he was first elected to the Senate in 1972, the U.S. was fighting in Vietnam. The Cold War was underway, and the Middle East was on the brink of a war. He says the world got through it, and we can do it again.
Today, the United States and Vietnam are partners and friends, and it's proof that even from the horrors of war, there's a way forward. Things can get better.
Biden once again called for a ceasefire and hostage deal now to end the fighting in Gaza. About the war in Ukraine, Biden said the U.S. will not let up. He said there will always be conflicts that pull the world apart, but leaders have to make sure the forces holding nations together are stronger. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Washington.
And that is the CBC News from Winnipeg.
Good afternoon, Manitoba. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg, 97.9 FM in Brandon, 12:30 a.m. in Churchill. I'm Emily Brast, your host this week on Radio Noon. Here's what's coming up on the show. Selkirk's beloved Catfish is getting a facelift. The giant statue of Chuck the Channel Cat is being repaired and getting a fresh coat of paint. We'll learn about the roadside monument and its importance to the community at 12:15. Meanwhile, Chuck is just one of dozens of quirky roadside monuments across Manitoba, from St. Malo's white-tailed deer to the Trapper in the Paw. What's your favorite giant statue in our province? You can share your favorite roadside finds with our guest from Travel Manitoba, or ask a question about your next road trip to see some spectacular sculptures. But first, strike notice filed to the province from 25,000 healthcare support workers. It's 12:07. You're listening to Radio Noon, and as you've been hearing in the news, 25,000 healthcare support workers could walk off the job as of October 8th. Both CUPE and MGEU have put the province on notice. The unions represent thousands of healthcare aides, laundry workers, and recreation coordinators. So what could this mean for Manitobans? Here's CUPE President Gina McKay speaking to media earlier this morning, explaining what led up to this point.
Many of you will recall that in August, after months of negotiations, 25,000 members represented in the healthcare sector at regional health authorities in most areas of the province overwhelmingly voted down the employer's best offer and gave the bargaining committees a strike mandate. Since that time, CUPE and MGU teams have been working with the employers to resolve issues at the bargaining table. But the process has not resulted in a meaningful improvement to offers to our members. That's why today, both unions here are announcing strike notice. We are unable to reach a fair deal at the bargaining table within the next 14 days, which is the mandatory number of days necessary to provide strike notice. Strike action will begin on October 8th. This is plenty of time to get a deal done if we see a fair deal offered at the bargaining table. A strike is always the last resort, but healthcare is in a staffing crisis, and this crisis demands urgent action. We know that without a fair contract that will help in recruiting and retaining dedicated healthcare workers, Manitoba's healthcare system will continue to struggle with the critical staffing shortages. Staffing shortages are not just a problem for workers who see their workloads increase. Those issues make their way to the bedside and affect the care that patients receive.
Healthcare jobs are once seen as highly desirable in Manitoba communities, but it's hard to recruit when the starting wage is $17.07 an hour. Workers can find jobs at Tim's, McDonald's, or the deli counter at Co-op for far more money and work that is physically and mentally less demanding. Anyone who works in healthcare knows it takes a whole team to deliver quality care. But healthcare support workers are being left behind, with the lowest pay in Canada. They deserve better. Meanwhile, other healthcare providers, like doctors, nurses, have seen generous pay benefits at their negotiating tables. We're not asking for what they receive. We're asking to close the ever-widening pay gap that has developed between these professions and support staff. We're asking for healthcare support workers to get the same kind of consideration and respect for their contributions to the healthcare system. To date, the solution has been kick the can down the road, fill service gaps with costly private agency staff, but we know everyone loses if we keep going down that road. Relying on agency staff is not good for local economies, it's not good for healthcare workers, and most importantly, it's not good for patients and residents. Promises have been made to fix the healthcare system. There is no healthcare system without people who provide healthcare. Addressing the staffing crisis must be job one and can't happen if these workers are not being recognized appropriately for their contributions. Our message to Manitobans: this is not what our members want to be doing. They're in the business of caring, not picketing. A strike is a last resort when all else has failed. Well, all else has failed. We know this will cause disruptions in healthcare services. We will continue to provide essential services. But this is about the future of healthcare, the future of public healthcare. And we think that's worth fighting for. And all these members here think it's worth fighting for.
What would a strike look like?
Well, it means reduced services. It means that patients will be served with plastic cutlery, plastic plates. It means Manitobans won't be getting the service they expect to receive from the healthcare system. The essential service will be there, life and limb will be preserved, but overall you won't have the other parts of the healthcare. It may look like less baths for residents and patients. There's many different things. It's really difficult to really say what it'll look like. I don't think we've seen a healthcare strike in a long time. It's unfortunate we have to come to this point. I think it's really important that we get to the table and bargain a fair deal, right, in the next 2 weeks.
And maybe I could just expand for a minute on the essential services piece. These healthcare workers, like 25,000 healthcare workers, are committed to their jobs. They're committed to their residents, their patients, their clients, or they wouldn't do this. They're certainly not doing it for the money. They are very committed. And when it comes to essential services, we are required by law to provide essential service. It will look very different, but we're going to do everything to make sure that the patients, the clients, the residents, they're not suffering because the QP and MGU are on strike. But care will be provided, but it's going to look different, as Kyle had said. So I just wanted to clarify that I've negotiated all of the essential services agreements, so we are ready. We're in a strike position.
That was Shannon McAteer with CUPE, Kyle Ross with MGEU, and before that we heard from Gina McKay, president of CUPE. If a deal is not reached before the deadline, workers could walk off the job, but they say essential services will still be provided. To read more on the story, go to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
The CBC News app delivers the answers you want to know and need to know.
What an extraordinary scene.
The breaking stories that shape your world. Reporting from the scene onto your screens.
Dropping the 8 now. We're just approaching Gaza.
Your source for mobile news. Delivered when you want, where you want.
This situation has changed very quickly.
The CBC News app. Download for free.
You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg, 990 AM in Steinbach, 95.7 FM in Fisher Branch. We're also broadcasting live on our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel and on the CBC Listen app. I'm Emily Brass. Well, here's what's still to come on the show. It's one of Selkirk's biggest photo ops. Like literally biggest. The giant catfish monument known as Chuck the Channel Cat is getting a fresh new look, so we'll find out more about the statue and why it's being restored. And if hearing about Chuck gets you hooked on Manitoba's giant roadside attractions, give us a call. Travel Manitoba will be in studio to hear your stories on the more than 100 fun and quirky statues and communities across our province, and she'll answer questions on organizing a road trip to go see them. You can give us a call at 204-780-0893 or text us at 204-588-7355. Well, in Winnipeg today, mainly sunny with a high of 21. Clear tonight, going down to a low of 11. Tomorrow, sunny, high of 26. Pretty warm for late September. Wednesday night, partly cloudy with a low of 15. And on Thursday, sunny and breezy with a high of 26. Right now, it's mainly sunny and 20 degrees in Winnipeg. Sunny and 17 in the Paw. In Norway House, mostly cloudy and 15. In Gimli, 20 degrees. In Dauphin, sunny and 19 degrees. And in Brandon, mainly sunny and 19. Well, if you've been down Main Street in Selkirk, you probably couldn't help but notice a giant catfish staring down at you as you pass by. That beloved roadside attraction, it's Chuck the Channel Cat, and he's about to get a facelift. Joining us now over Zoom is Dwayne Nickel, CAO at the City of Selkirk. Hi, Dwayne.
Hi there.
So first, can you just describe what Chuck looks like?
Boy, he looks like a catfish. He's about 30 feet tall, sits on Main Street in Selkirk, and it's kind of a more cartoon take of the fish, but yeah, it definitely looks like a catfish.
Okay. And what kind of work is being done on Chuck?
Well, they're stripping the old paints off, repainting, and then repairing some of the damage to the fiberglass body of the statue.
And then what?
Well, then he's going to have a facelift. So so it was about time for Chuck to get a little refresh, and so that's what we're doing right now is just improving the paint, fixing some of the age caused damage, and making them look brand new.
And who's doing the work?
Jen Mosienko design, and so we went through an extensive process of trying to find somebody to do. This is very unique work. It's not like a corner shop that opens up to do monument restoration like this, and so we contacted a number of different vendors, but Jen comes very highly recommended. Likely, if you've looked at some of these monuments in other communities in the Interlake, you've seen her work. So, as an example, the King Buck in Poplarfield. And the Mosquito and Camarno, those are both examples of that work. So ultimately, we got a couple of quotes and looked at the best option for the city.
And how much is the restoration going to cost?
It'll be under $15,000. Yeah.
Okay. And why is it important to the city of Selkirk to spruce Chuck up?
Well, there's a number of reasons for that. I mean, first and foremost, Chuck is named after Chuck Norquay, an important citizen in our community who really was at the forefront, led the charge to have Selkirk on the map for the sport fishing industry. So through his own efforts, attracted a number of different fishing personalities to come and film in Selkirk, and that really spurred on the sport fishing industry in Selkirk. So it's one of our largest tourism draws here in town. The other thing is it's a community icon. We all feel like that Chuck belongs to us and we own. The city uses Chuck as a representation. Often you'll see fun uses of the character in some of our publications and our communication efforts on our social media. There's even Chuck GIFs. You can buy Chuck T-shirts. There's Chuck statues available in town. Mini statues for your desk. So it is a fun reminder of who we are as a community and the importance of sport fishing. But it's also, serves as a reminder about our connection to the historic Red River and our obligation as citizens here to protect the waters and to protect the environment. So it's really, for me personally, it's a reminder of our responsibility to make sure that we're doing well by the Red and taking care of that so that people can enjoy fishing, can enjoy the natural environment for generations to come.
Yeah, and you mentioned Chuck Norquay and how he put Selkirk on the map. Like, is Selkirk still a huge draw to people who are going to fish catfish? Is it still bringing visitors from all over the place to Selkirk?
It definitely is. Sport fishing throughout the entire Triple S region, so St. Clements, St. Andrews, Selkirk, that sport fishing is a huge tourist draw for us. But we see in our hotels during peak seasons of fishing, when fishing season opens up and during certain points throughout the year where different species are more active, you definitely see that. But catfishing is a huge draw. People come here just to do some catfishing, some sport catfishing. So, in all summer long along the dock and along Selkirk Park, you see people casting lines in. So it definitely brings people out, and it's a big core part of our personality when it comes to tourism.
And you touched on Chuck Norquay, but probably a lot of people out there don't really know him. Maybe you can elaborate a bit on his role in, elevating the stature of catfish in Selkirk. How did he help spread awareness of this?
Well, we have. I'll only touch on it briefly, but we have a whole page dedicated on the Selkirk Museum website that you can go to. So if you just search Chuck Norquay, his name will pop up, and there's a whole page of documenting his life and his story in relation to this. But really, it comes down to him taking the initiative, loving to fish as part of a personal pastime, and having that connection to the waterway. And writing letters, or writing at least one initial letter to a very popular sport fishing TV series in the 80s, and they come out, and just the impact, the amount. I think they pulled 200 pounds of catfish for the first 15 minutes of being out on the side of the river casting lines, and so it just was such a startling experience for the TV series that a number of different ones come to Selkirk, and it just became a thing within the sport fishing community in magazines and through a word of mouth. It just really grew, and it all really was kickstarted by the one letter.
Wow, yeah. And that U.S. show was called Good Fishing, and apparently it led him to securing the title Catfish Capital of North America is Selkirk. And I understand.
Trademark, absolutely.
Yeah, the capital. You can't beat that. And so I understand too that this is part of Selkirk's bigger strategy for improving public spaces. Is that right?
Absolutely. You know, we over the past number of years, we've seen some pretty significant investments into our downtown, into rejuvenating and renovating our public spaces, and Chuck is absolutely part of that. You know, a beloved part of that. So it is kind of representative of the renewal that is happening throughout Selkirk. But it's just another asset to maintain, and so we have a whole process for maintaining our infrastructure, our asset management program, and making sure that we're always putting our best foot forward. Chuck has got a bit of a celebrity. Lots of photos taken with Chuck. You can't get through town if you're visiting without wanting to stop and take a photo with Chuck. So we want to make sure that he looked as best as possible.
When people come to visit you from out of town, do you bring them to see Chuck, the channel cat?
Absolutely. That and the Marine Museum. Those are the two, and you can't miss the water tower. So you get all three of those in a quick drive through.
Mm-hmm. So for people who might want to come and see Chuck's fresh new look, when do you expect the work to be done?
We were hoping by the end of this week, but the rain that we had recently has slowed it up a little bit. So by end of next week, for sure, that the work will be done.
Exciting. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Dwayne.
Thanks for having me.
Dwayne Nicol is CAO for the city of Selkirk. And coming up on our call-in conversation today, we want to hear from you. What unique and quirky roadside monuments have you come across in your travels across Manitoba? We'll be joined by Desiree Rantala with Travel Manitoba, and she's going to have some day trip suggestions for going out and seeing these giant statues, which are all over our province. There's more than 100 of them, by the way. So if you'd like to explore some of the well-known or lesser-known monuments, give us a call. Your questions and your tales will be welcome. 204-780-0893. And you can also text us at 204-588-7355.
Hi, I'm Saroja Coelho, host of the Saturday afternoon call-in show Just Asking, now expanding to 2 hours.
And I'm Ian Hanamansing, host of the Sunday afternoon call-in show Cross Country Checkup.
Whether it's world events
or what's happening in your backyard,
every weekend we connect Canada live.
That's Just Asking with Saroja Coelho, Saturday afternoons at 4 Eastern.
And Cross Country Checkup with Ian Hanamansing, Sunday afternoons at 4 Eastern on CBC Radio 1.
It's 12:24. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1. I'm Emily Brass. Vancouver's Ivan Hartle spent a good part of the last few months out on the road, and he's not quite ready to give up the summer vibes just yet. Here's his latest song. This is called So Am I.
Complicate this, I know. Always in a constant state of yes and no. Maybe I'm living all my life in vain. Ooh, but now you got me feeling some kind of way. Just you laughing after all is everything that I could want. Just you laughing so damn. You said you flying high, felt so am I. So am I. You're some quick to rush aside. Right with you next to me, and I'll never get enough of what you do. Oh, I can never get enough of you. Oh, just your loving after all is everything flying high, but so am I. So am I. Well, 'cause when I'm on the precipice, feeling the weight of the world, nothing but your precious love, and all my tides they turn. After all, is everything that I could want. Just your love is so divine. You said you're flying high, felt so am I. So am I. So am I. So am I.
From Vancouver, that was Ivan Hartle with So Am I.
The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It's a day of hope, awareness, and reflection. Hi, I'm Phelan Johnson. As we acknowledge the rich and diverse cultures, voices, experiences, and histories of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, join me for a very special program honoring the survivors and paying tribute to the children who never made it home. Monday, September 30th at 8 p.m., 8:30 in Newfoundland on CBC Radio 1 and on the Listen app.
You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg, 105.3 FM in Swan River, 990 AM in Morden. Well, if hearing about Chuck the Channel Cat earlier has you hooked on Manitoba's giant roadside attractions, give us a call. Travel Manitoba will be in studio to hear your stories on the more than 100 fun and quirky statues and communities across our province. You can also ask any kind of questions you might have about how to see them, how to plan a day trip, where are the best ones to go to. You can give us a call at 204-780-0893. Get those calls in now so you're first in line. 204-780-0893. And you can also text us if that's better for you, 204-588-7355. The news is next.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon. I'm Rosanna Hempel. At 12:30, it's 19 in Winnipeg. Mostly sunny today, a high of 21. 25,000 healthcare support workers could go on strike October 8th. CUPE and MGEU represent healthcare aides, laundry workers, and recreation coordinators. The unions say their workers are the lowest paid across the country, with starting wages at $17 an hour. Shannon McAteer is with CUPE.
There's a staffing crisis in healthcare right now, and the way to fix that is to support the staff that you have. We need to recruit and retain staff, and you need to do that by providing better wages, by providing better working conditions.
The unions say they're losing staff to jobs at grocery stores and McDonald's because the wages are higher and the jobs are less stressful. The MGEU and CUPE presented the province with an offer on September 5th, although they say they have yet to hear back. If there's no deal before the deadline, workers could walk off the job except for essential services. The province of Manitoba is dropping the age for when people can be routinely screened for breast cancer. Health Minister Uzoma Asaguera announced today it will reduce the age from 50 to 45 by the end of next year. The age will be reduced to 40 over time. Asaguera says Cancer Care has been working with healthcare system partners to hire more mammography technologists and increase screening appointments. The rural municipality of Hanover is still dealing with the aftermath of last week's flooding. A heavy downpour swamped much of southeast Manitoba last Monday and Tuesday. Hanover Reeve Jim Funk says the flooding has left many on a long road to recovery.
Farmers will feel the aftermath. Some guys still had some wheat on. They cannot combine because it's too soft. Some of them are starting to corn silage, and I know it's going to leave a lot of ruts and maybe in some areas not even passable. So it is going to affect the farmers.
The province says it's gotten 23 requests from the public for its disaster financial assistance program. In the House of Commons today, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is making the case for bringing down the Liberal government. Poilievre is asking other MPs to vote for his non-confidence motion of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government, saying he wants to restore the promise of Canada. The motion will be debated today with a vote set for tomorrow. Both the Bloc Québécois and NDP say they will not support the motion. And that is the CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local CBC News is at 1:30.
Thank you, Rosanna.
You're welcome.
That's Rosanna Hempel from the CBC Manitoba Newsroom. It's 12:33 and our weather specialist, Riley Lachuk, joins us now. Riley, looks like maybe a bit of a calmer forecast today.
Yeah, a lot calmer a few days ahead, Emily, after the past 7 days we've had.
They've been pretty active.
I was talking about that high pressure ridge yesterday that's going to build over Western Canada. What that's going to do is clear skies and really warm us up as we get into the next several days. Looking at temperatures broadly across Western Canada right now, 21 in Regina, Saskatoon 23, low 20s through southern Alberta as well. Expect those temperatures to bump up another 5-6 degrees as we get through the next couple of days here. Winnipeg, we're at 20 right now. Brandon, Dauphin both at 19, and Thompson is at 11. Mainly sunny skies across southern Manitoba. Still dealing with the fallout from that area of low pressure that brought southern Manitoba rain over the weekend. That is now over Hudson Bay on more the Nunavut side of Hudson Bay right now. And what that is doing is bringing a few showers still to parts of northern Manitoba. Thompson through Norway House, even along the Hudson Bay coast, potentially getting a few showers to the afternoon today. For the rest of us, mainly sunny skies, a mix of sun and clouds into northwestern Ontario today. And that trend continues as we get into Wednesday. Mainly sunny skies, temperatures well above seasonal for this time of the year. That trend continues into Thursday, into Friday, just repeating for the next several days. Temperatures, in some cases, up to 10 degrees above seasonal for this time of the year. Today's forecast, 23s for both Brandon and Dauphin, 25 in Swan River this afternoon, 13 with a few showers in Thompson, Gillam looking at about 15 degrees. Basically anywhere, Thompson, Gillam, Flin Flon, and south expect mainly sunny skies through the afternoon today. Draw that line across northern Manitoba into the far northern part of the province. Expect more of a cloudy day today with some showers. Clearing as we get through the day into northwestern Ontario as well, and 17 in Kenora. 26 for Wednesday, 26 for Thursday, a bit breezy, south winds 30 gusting to 50. Friday, sunshine 23 degrees. Saturday, sunshine 25, and sunshine at 22 on the way for Sunday.
Wow, sounds like a beautiful long weekend.
Yeah. I'm looking at
Awesome.
an extended period of sunshine.
Looking forward to that. Thanks so much, Riley.
You're welcome.
That's CBC's Riley Lachuk. He's our weather specialist, and he'll be here to update the forecast during our afternoon show Up to Speed, and he'll also do the forecast on the TV news. That's the CBC Winnipeg News at 6. 12:35 right now, and you're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1. And from the world's largest teepee in Cranberry Portage to the biggest curling rock on Earth in Arborg, Manitoba loves its giant and often quirky roadside attractions. We just heard how much Selkirk loves its huge catfish Chuck. What's your favorite community monument in Manitoba? Give us a call and let us know what statue do you love and why. The number to call is 204-780-0893. Again, 204-780-0893. We want to hear about your favorite monuments along the roadsides of Manitoba. And you can text us. Maybe you're at work or somewhere else where it's easier to text. That number is 204-588-7355. Again, 204-588-7355 is the number for texts. And joining us now to talk about our province's oversized statues and how to plan a day trip around them is Desiree Rantala, Content and Marketing Coordinator with Travel Manitoba. Hi, Desiree.
Hello, Emily.
So let's start with you. What are your favorite roadside attractions in Manitoba?
Oh, geez. Well, it's always a toughie to pick favorites in Manitoba. We actually, for people that don't know, we have around 100 different roadside attractions in Manitoba. So there's quite a few to see around the province. I would have to say that I have two that are a favorite. One that's just west of Winnipeg. I have to say that Happy Rock found in Gladstone is one of my favorites.
How can you not smile when you see that?
Totally. It just ensues happiness. Absolutely. I'm a rural girl. I'm from Dauphin, and so I frequently travel to the parkland. And driving through Gladstone, you just can't help but just smile and really be happy when you're driving through Gladstone. And the second one I have to say is the Viking in Gimli. For those of you that haven't been in the Interlake, there's a beautiful large Viking statue in Gimli, which pays wonderful homage to the Icelandic culture out there. Having lived in Gimli for a few years, it's definitely a bit of a nostalgic childhood favorite of mine. So I would say that those two are my favorites for a little bit of a past and present.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and very impressive when you look up at that Viking with his huge axe and his helmet.
Totally.
And another one not too far from there that I had a good chance to stop in and see is the Snakes in Inwood. Have you been there?
Yes, that would be Sam and Sarah, and they're located in Inwood, which is just a small community. For those people that are probably also familiar with the very world-famous Narcisse snake dens. The dens are going to be closing off now, wrapping up with the fall season, but those are some pretty neat snakes to see. I actually took a visit there last summer for the first time, early in May for their emerging of the dens. And I'd have to say it was a pretty neat experience going out there to conquer, some fear of the snakes and going out there to see Sam and Sarah. They're definitely some great characters in the area.
Yeah, it could make you feel kind of warm and fuzzy about snakes. It's kind of nice. So we do have a caller. Shane is on the line, and he has one that he wants to tell you about. Hi, Shane. Tell us where you're calling from and what's your question?
I'm phoning from Winnipeg, but my favorite roadside attraction is a natural one. It's the halfway tree between Brandon and Winnipeg. Everybody knows it, and everybody loves it.
And everybody looks out for it when it's like you're driving and you're trying to get there.
Yeah, at least it gives you some optimism. But anyway, it's also pretty heroic standing there all alone like that.
Yeah. Have you seen that one too, Desiree?
I haven't seen it, and I'm actually excited that I need to go and now seek this out. I've probably driven by it a million times going from Brandon to Winnipeg, so I'm really excited that this actually gives me a new notch to try on my fall road trip list. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Shane.
It's on the south side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thanks for calling and sharing that. We appreciate that, Shane. And we've gotten a text now, too. The giant Coke can on the west side of Portage la Prairie is the world's tallest, and that came from John. How about that one, Desiree?
Yes, I did see that one a few summers ago, and I will say you have to see it to believe it. I believe it's Portage la Prairie's old water tower that Coca-Cola sort of got involved with to sort of put a wrap around it to make it quite possibly the largest Coca-Cola can in the world. It's a super fun photo op, so anyone that's looking to go for a road trip in Portage la Prairie, it's an absolute must-see.
Yeah. Too bad it doesn't dispense Coke out of there. That
Wouldn't that be nice?
An extra touch, yeah. So what are some of the more popular roadside monuments in Manitoba? Like, which ones do you think get the most visitors?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say on our social media with our tags and things that I see from the public, one that I would say is more side an attraction, less a monument, would be the Centre of Canada sign that's just found on the east side of Winnipeg, and that's in the Arm of Taché. Now, the reason that one is so popular is it's in the name. It really does represent the longitudinal center of Canada. So it gets a lot of traffic there, locals, national and international visitors alike. It's very hard to miss right off the number 1 highway, a big, beautiful red and white sign. There's a really lovely park there as well. So anyone who's doing a cross Manitoba or cross Canada trip, it's a great place to stop and rest. If you're even grabbing a picnic with the family, stretch your legs. It's a pretty one-of-a-kind photo op for sure.
Mm-hmm. Give us a call and let us know which ones are your favorites. Call us at 204-780-0893. Or Desiree can answer all kinds of questions on planning a good road trip. Maybe like, a good cluster of monuments that you might want to go visit all at once. So call us with your questions and comments, 204-780-0893. Or you can text us at 204-588-7355. So have you ever taken a trip, Desiree, just to visit some of the monuments?
I actually did a really good road trip to see some of these roadside attractions earlier this spring. We were hosting a student from Red River College, and she actually had also an interest to come and see some of these weird, wonky, wonderful roadside attractions. So I said, you know what? Great, let's make a day trip out of it. So we actually did a really great Winnipeg to Wawanesa day trip, and it was perfect. And we were able to tack on 4 roadside attractions that day.
Wow.
Probably could have done a bit more, but, had to make some room to stop for lunch and dinner. So what we did was we headed west of Winnipeg on, I believe, Highway number 2, the Redcoat Trail. Our first stop was in Elm Creek to see the second largest fire hydrant in the world.
Oh, fire hydrant.
Yes. So for all of you firefighters and fire fanatics out there, it's definitely a one to see. We continued on the highway. We stopped in St. Cloud to see a very large tobacco pipe, which was really neat. And that just plays homage to the town's history of settlers that came over from St. Cloud, France.
Oh.
So that was really neat. There's always so much history and heritage with all of these roadside attractions. We then continued for our number 3 stop for the cheery town of Holland to see their windmill. It really does come to life in the summertime. I believe there's a little miniature golf course there, tons of flowers, and I believe the windmill actually will operate during the summer, so it's really quite lovely. And then our 4th, but definitely could have not been our least stop, was in Glenboro to see Sarah the camel. And she's a really great patriot to the Spruce Sands area, which was really great. And at that point, we had really worked up an appetite, so we were ready to eat. And we kept heading west to Wawanesa, and we stopped at the Garden View Drive-In for dinner, had a honey dill chicken burger and some ice cream.
Yeah.
But anyone that knows the number 2 highway will know that Manitoba is definitely not short on any drive-ins and diners. So there are lots of places to eat. So I would say that was definitely one of my favorite road trips I've done, and I wouldn't mind redoing it again in the future.
Yeah, that sounds just so ultimately Manitoba. Everything you just
Absolutely.
mentioned, the Spirit Sands, that unique desert that we have, all those drive-thrus. We've gotten a text now. I bet you don't have the giant cattails at the entrance to Mariopolis, Manitoba from the Amisk, the Beaver in Dauphin, and the person sent a picture, and it's a billboard with massive cattails poking out from the top of it. Had you heard of those?
I had heard of the Amisk the beaver since I'm from Dauphin, so I'm familiar with that one. But I can't say I've heard of the cattails, so that's a definite new one for me.
Yeah.
I'd have to look that up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, I printed a list of more than 100 of these roadside attractions. So we'll have to look whether, I don't even think Mariopolis is in there. So you're adding one to the list here, Texter. Thanks for that. And then someone named John texted in to mention the giant pumpkin in Roland.
Oh, yes. I feel like 'tis the season. How can we not talk about Roland? 'Tis the season. It's officially fall. Our first day of fall was on Sunday, and Halloween's just right around the corner. So Holland has a giant pumpkin for all of you autumnal and pumpkin fanatics out there. And the pumpkin was actually created after a gentleman in Roland. He was deemed the Pumpkin King. He actually grew the largest pumpkin in Manitoba, which got deemed to be the world's largest pumpkin in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Oh, that's the story behind it.
Yes.
I was wondering. Well, that's great.
And a lot of Manitobans don't really know that. There are a lot of Guinness World Records here in Manitoba, and we have many of our roadside attractions to thank for them.
Oh, Oh, neat. Yeah, that definitely gives us more visibility for travelers going by. When you see a giant pumpkin, you start to get to know the story. So give us a call, 204-780-0893. We'd love to hear your stories about roadside attractions. Maybe you took a trip to go see them. Let us know, 204-780-0893, or you can text us at 204-588-7355. And in fact, we got another text, someone mentioning that they love the origin story that named Flin Flon. And of course, there's a giant monument paying tribute to that. Tell us about that one, Desiree.
Yes, absolutely. For anyone who's looking for maybe more than a day trip and maybe wants to make a weekend or a week out of it, I would absolutely recommend taking a trip to Manitoba's north and seeing Mr. Flintabetty Flanagan, for whom the town of Flin Flon, the city of rock, is named after. There are so many lovely, wonderful things to do in Flin Flon. Right where the Flintabetty Flanagan statue is, there's a wonderful museum, a great campground. There are tons of amenities in Flin Flon. You can actually walk the Flintabetty Flanagan Boardwalk Trail, which is very picturesque and beautiful. You could even dip into Baker's Narrows Lodge for a fresh fish fry and some fries. It's definitely a beautiful area. And if you're looking even for a little bit more entertainment, you could pop into the Big Drive-In, which is only one of Manitoba's very few still operating outdoor cinematic drive-ins.
Oh, wow. I've always wanted to go to Flin Flon. Now you've made me want to go even more. And, there's a lot of them up north, the different northern ones to mention. Cranberry Portage, the world's largest teepee. And, of course, we also have up north in the Paw, there's an Inukshuk and the Trapper. Thompson has the King Miner, and Churchill, another Inukshuk, and the Polar Bear, of course. Now, we have a caller on the line, Glenn. He says, my kids and I went to Flin Flon for the big statue, and the Roblin Jewel of the Parkland was missing. Let's hear more from Glenn. Glenn, hi. Tell us where you're calling from and tell us what you wanted to say.
Well, I'm from Winnipeg, but when my kids were little, we went all around the province because we didn't have a lot of cash to, have a cottage or anything. So we went around all the places and saw them. So that's how my kids learned the province. But we went to Roblin specifically on a big northern trip because that's where my dad's from. And the Jewel of the Parkland, which is a big gem, was missing. So we went into the town office, and my daughter went into the town office and said, someone stole the jewel. And the lady didn't know what, said, what? No, she told us where it was. And the other guy says, I think I can help you. So we went from there into the auto body shop because next year was their 100th anniversary, and it was in being all fixed up and painted. So we got a tour of it privately. And then when we left there, she said, Dad, if Flintabetty's not in Flin Flon when we get up there, I'm going to cry. And she was about 10 years old.
Oh,
oh dear.
Well, that's special. You really got a unique tour there. Are you familiar with the one in Roblin, Vanessa? Desiree.
Yes, yeah. I've, having lived in Dauphin, I've definitely made my way out to Roblin a few times, but I'm very happy to report that every time I have been there, the jewel has been there. So thankfully, there has been no absence of sightings at all. It's really nice to hear about families making time to go and do these roadside attraction trips. I think that's why I love our roadside attractions so much, is because they're such an age-friendly activity to do in Manitoba. It's a seasonal-friendly activity, and it's a family-friendly activity. So you can put the kids in the car if everyone's getting a little restless from being in the house. You can pack a picnic and go on a fun adventure. So whether it's seeking out the Jewel of the Parkland, going to the Narcisse snake dens, or even making a bit longer of a road trip out of it, such as heading to the Paw or to Flin Flon, it really is something for everyone.
And Glenn, are you doing any more of those kind of family trips where you go to see the monuments?
Well, we do it all across Canada, but yes, even in the Dauphin area, there's Gilbert and Gilbert Plains, the golf ball, and then there's Archie, the skier, and McCreary. So there's no shortage, but it always adds to the trip. And when they got the new one in Melita a few years back, I was on the way to my sister's for the Labor Day Classic, and we phoned for Melita. She says, what are you doing there? You're coming to Regina for the game. And I said, new attraction. She says, I just can't believe you, and hung up.
I don't blame you, Glenn. They're pretty cool to see.
Well, it's definitely noteworthy to keep tabs on all the attractions that you've been to, because I will say that there are some pretty, roadside attraction fanatics out there who really do make the effort to try and see them all. So I would definitely encourage you to keep tabs on that. And hey, it becomes a fun family tradition.
Thanks for that call, Glenn.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Here's another few suggestions now. In Nipawa, there's the world's largest purple martin colony. In Pinawa, the Heritage Sundial. In Treeherne, glass bottle buildings. West Hawk Lake, Spirit of the Hawk. Boissevain, Tommy the Turtle. And in fact, we got a text from Vasil, who's mentioning Tommy the Turtle in Boissevain, just north of North Dakota border. How about that one? Do you know anything about that one, Desiree?
You know, I have to say I have not been to Boissevain. I've been to a lot of places in Manitoba, but I look forward to always still going somewhere new every time. I have yet to go see Tommy the Turtle, and I will certainly be making a day trip or more so, maybe even a weekend trip out of it. Absolutely.
Well, we still have just a couple minutes left. If you want to get that call in, let us know your story about Manitoba monuments. 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893, or text 204-588-7355. So why do you think the roadside attractions are so popular in Manitoba?
You know, that's a really interesting question. I've lived in Manitoba my whole life, and, you know, having traveled outside to other provinces, I can't say I've seen a lot of other roadside attractions in other provinces. I have seen a few in Saskatchewan, so perhaps it's more a bit of a prairie thing. But I really think that, you know, Manitobans are really proud of their community. It really boasts Manitoban heritage and history. And I just think that each community is really proud to have, I guess you could say, more so like a representative or a character of their community. And with the storytelling behind it, the draw that it can bring from a tourism aspect, it's really sort of like a fun club to be a part of.
And of course, you know, I was reading from this list, and there's so many of them. Sanford has a mini grain elevator. And you mentioned St. Cloud. The smoking pipe is actually the world's largest, according to this list. St. Joseph has the red kidney bean. There's that white horse you can see right from the highway in St. Francis Xavier. Now, a lot of those are really close. Grunthal has a buffalo and a bull that you can check out. And that mosquito that was mentioned was in Camarno. So many different things. And someone has just texted in to talk about in Melita, Sunny the banana? How is there a banana being one of the mascots or statues in Manitoba?
I also have not been to Melita to see the banana, so that too is on my list. There are definitely a lot of roadside attractions in southern Manitoba. One in particular that I have seen is in Altona. They have an absolute massive painting. I want to say it's maybe almost around 100 feet tall, and I believe it's a representation of one of Van Gogh's works, and that's a really beautiful piece. So whether you're an art enthusiast or you are an animal enthusiast and wanting to go to the Narcisse snake dens, that's why the roadside attractions are so unique in Manitoba, is because regardless of your interests and your age, there really is something to sort of draw people throughout the province. Another tool that I think would be really great is to remind people that we have the Manitoba Explorer app at Travel Manitoba, and we really want to encourage people to get out and explore Manitoba. So it's a free app that can be downloaded and found at travelmanitoba.com or in the Google Play Store, and it's a really fun way to earn badges and pins along the way. There are several point of interests all over the province, and I would say some of the roadside attractions are definitely on there. So I would encourage folks that if you're out and about this fall or even winter, any season in Manitoba, download that app, and you too can start earning some badges and pins. It's really fun.
Yeah, it'll help you plan your trips. So we've gotten a couple more texts. Someone mentioned the swinging suspension bridge in Souris.
Yes. Oh, I love Souris. I was there a few years ago for the first time. Didn't see any peacocks, but they also have a large peacock on display for their roadside attraction, along with the Souris swinging bridge. Souris is an absolute wonderful small town. You can go and visit the Minery Bakery and get their Bigfoot apple fritters. Go early. Ooh. They sell out. They're absolutely delicious. You can have a picnic in the park at Victoria Park. You could take a canoe along the river. There's really lots to see in Souris, and the Souris swinging bridge is certainly a photo-worthy milestone.
And one last text here, someone saying, FYI, Flintabaddy, I think I'm pronouncing that right, was designed by the cartoonist Al Capp. So quite some notoriety there with the Mr. You said it so well. Tell us his name again.
Flintabaddy Flanagan, and I believe I'm also saying that correct, but I stand to be corrected.
Yes, and apparently he drew Little Abner cartoons and comics. So yeah, quite well known. Well, this was just such a fun chat, and yeah, encouraging everyone to go to Travel Manitoba, get some tips on how to do these day trips. Thanks so much for joining us, Desiree.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Desiree Rantala is Content and Marketing Coordinator at Travel Manitoba. And joining us now in studio is Faith Fundal. What's coming up on Up to Speed today?
Emily, healthcare workers support workers in the province could walk the picket lines in 2 weeks. The unions representing 25,000 care aides, laundry workers, ward clerks have filed formal strike notice. They say their workers are the lowest paid in Canada, with a starting wage of around $17 an hour. We'll hear from both the MGU and QP coming up on the program today.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
That's Faith Fundal, host of Up to Speed, and that's on the air here on CBC Radio 1 from 3 to 6 p.m. Well, thanks to everyone who helped us put together the show. Also, thanks to everyone who called us and texted us. It's so great to hear your stories and have your questions today on the best roadside monuments across Manitoba. So today on the other side of the glass, our studio technician is Marshall Hodgins. Our studio director is Wendy Parker. And producing our YouTube live stream is Kevin Nipatebo. I'm Emily Brass, host this week for Radio Noon. Having a great time here. Hope to hear from you again tomorrow. Coming up next on CBC Radio 1 is Unreserved. Have a great afternoon.